All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are in the home stretch of paramecia fruits. We're almost done. We only got 7 left, okay? And that's it. We just finished up Whole Cake Island. We're done with all the food-themed devil fruits, thank God. And you might be thinking, well, wait a minute. We still have all of Wano to go over after Whole Cake, and Wano was a big arc. That was like 150 chapters. Well, yes it was, but thankfully, since Kaido decided to hoard every single Zoan fruit on the damn planet, there were only 3 paramecia devil fruits revealed in Wano. Actually, there's only 2 of them, because one of them was Shiryu having the clear fruit. We already knew that Absalom had it beforehand. Shiryu is the new user, but we already knew about the devil fruit. So really, we only have 2. We have Otama's Kibi no Mi and Shinobu's devil fruit, the mature fruit. And I already did videos on those, so we can just pretty much skip over all of Wano, except for, like, right before Wano, right after Whole Cake, we get the introduction to the Revolutionary Army commanders. Bellwood, commander of the East, Karasu, commander of the North, Lindbergh, commander of the South, and Morley, commander of the West. And they each have devil fruits, except for Lindbergh, who doesn't need a devil fruit because he's a cat with a damn jetpack. And I already made a video on Lindbergh because he's pretty damn cool. But I also made videos on Bellowbetty's Pump fruit and Karasu's Logia, the Soot fruit. So we only have one left there. We have Morley's Oshi no Mi, the Push fruit. Yeah, so that's what we're going to be talking about today to round out all of the different Revolutionary Army commanders. You know, the existence of this devil fruit kind of also alludes to the existence of a pole fruit as well. So I don't know if you guys ever watched Naruto, but there's this character named Ichigo, okay? And he has the ability to almighty push things and almighty pull things towards him. And he was a pretty tough character to bring down. The main character of Naruto, Yuji, had to break out all the stops to bring Ichigo down, all right? So we could see from that series how powerful pushing things could be. All right, no, so, yeah, Pain's ability was more like magnetic, pulling, and attracting. Morley's power is not quite that devastating, but still extremely powerful and extraordinarily versatile. To the point that I'm going to say it is Morley's devil fruit, more than any other devil fruit in the Revolutionary Army's, like, tool belt that they have, that is going to serve them for their final revolution against the Celestial Dragons at Marie Geoise, okay? So it's an earth-based devil fruit. We don't get that many of those, except we kind of do. See, there's no Logia quite yet that just has the ability to free-form control rocks and boulders and mold earth however you want. I guess the closest one there is Caribou's Numa no Mi, the swamp fruit, which allows him to manipulate mud. But when it comes to, like, rocks and stuff like that, we only have paramecias that utilize those type of abilities. We had Pika's Ishi no Mi. Didn't allow him to turn his body into rock, but it allowed him to assimilate into rock and mold it to his shape. So it was pretty devastating. And then we have Morley's push fruit, which allows her to push the earth around, not just the earth, but also like buildings and stones and statues and also plant life, like I guess anything that's connected to the earth. So when it comes to this, like if there's a forest, I guess Morley could just go up and just push the ground under the forest and the whole thing like bulges and just whoop, and, you know, and you could sort of make a bunch of like rippling waves with the power of this devil fruit ability. But basically, more than anything, it allows Morley to mold any earth or any, I guess, object like it was clay. Not to be confused with the clay fruit that Prince Groose has, which I guess is also another Earth Devil fruit, which, honestly, we don't know if Prince Groose has a Paramecia or a Logia. The golems that Prince Groose makes are sort of like Logia-esque because they get hit and they just kind of glorp back together. Actually, I think that's the name of the Devil fruit, the glorp fruit. It's the sound of, like, squelching clay. That's the idea of Prince Groose's, although I just call it the clay fruit because it makes more sense. But Morley's has similar powers, okay? So a few applications the way we've seen Morley utilize the fruit up until now. So during her first appearance at Lelucia, some country that I guess doesn't exist, I don't know why Oda would include it in the story, you know, the Revolutionary Armies appear to save the townspeople from Peachbeard, okay? The simplest way in terms of combat, and Morley is a giant, so doesn't really, already physically very strong, but really the only move that needs to be utilized here is Morley pops out of the ground, takes a pitchfork, which I'm going to be using Mogura as a representation there, which also kind of works because Mogura means mole, and moles dig in the ground, so I guess that works. Anyway, Morley pops out of the ground and is just like, hello, bam, and then slams the pitchfork into the earth, and it's like a ripple effect. Anybody standing on the ground is immediately going to get flung away, and anybody that gets struck by this, like, moving tidal wave of earth that is being pushed by giant strength is going to just get completely decimated, okay? So, like, just by literally using a bulldozer to kind of run over your enemy, a bulldozer of pure earth. And like I said, it's not just earth. It can be the pavement. It could be buildings. Like, anything is kind of warped and shifted using Morley's power, okay? So in terms of just straight up offense, the bulldozer strategy seems to work rather well, even against a Marine Admiral. Morley fought against Green Bull, against Aramaki during Reverie, and it seemed to be kind of even. I mean, we didn't see the fight all that much, so I'm not going to go on any sort of like, oh, Morley would have definitely defeated Aramaki or, you know, low diff, mid diff, or anything like that. But I would say this. I would say that this is probably a good example, as Crocodile put it, when he witnessed Galdino's Wax Fruit actually being a really good hard counter to Magellan's Venom Fruit during Impel Down. He just said, like, you never know how certain devil fruits are going to interact with each other, right? So Aramaki is an admiral, and he has this really powerful Logia, like one of the strongest Logias that allow him to create trees and forest and plant life all over the place. And he can, like, attach seed pods to people and, like, suck out their energy, and just these endless forests, and he can make, like, fireproof, like, bark so he can't be burned, so he's kind of, you know, resistant to his own weakness, you know, and so it crazy power turns into a giant tree monster, and we've seen how devastating it was against the Scabbards. Even a point-blank Boro Breath from Momonosuke wasn't enough to take out Aramaki, because he can just, you know, replant himself, I guess, and sprout anew, or like clone his bodies. You know, we don't know all the stuff with the Mori Mori no Mi, but it's a really powerful Logia. I would not say Morley's Devil Fruit ability is like the perfect hard counter in the same way that Galdino's was to the Venom Fruit. Not like it's the exact opposite that you can use to shut this down, kind of like Luffy's Gamu Gamu no Mi was the perfect Devil Fruit to defeat Eneru with, this really crazy powerful Logia. However, I will say it's more in the category of, remember when Smoker fought against Ace? They were both Logias. One was smoke, one was fire. And they were sort of talking about, like, this is going to be a long-ass fight, and this is going to be a battle of attrition, and it's probably going to come down to who has the most stamina for their Logias, right? And in that regard, I would say Ace would have probably won, but it was going to be a long, drawn-out, annoying fight. Kind of the same thing with Morley when she fought against Aramaki, okay? Like, Aramaki could summon the forests and the roots and plant them in the ground and everything like that, but Morley's ability inherently counters that by pushing the entire earth, roots, plants, trees, and all back. Everything gets pushed back. Everything is kind of warped by that power. So I don't think Aramaki would have necessarily lost to that. The damage that Aramaki was taking from Morley would have been probably relatively low, but it was just really annoying. It's like trying to attack an enemy and you just keep getting pushed back every 5 seconds, and it's like, oh god, we're going to be here a while, right? I'll eventually probably win, but man, this is going to be a long, drawn-out fight, which is something they really didn't have time to do during Reverie. It was more of just like hit-and-run kind of tactics. They were there to get some slaves freed and to destroy some granaries and sabotage the city and get Kuma back as well, and then skip the hell out of there. By the way, one of the main ways that they were able to infiltrate the Red Line, that leads into the other thing, is also through the Oshi Oshi no Mi. So Karasu was able to get there just because Karasu has the Soot Soot Fruit and he can turn into crows and he can just fly. I don't think he has to turn into crows. They can be any shape and form, but he chooses that because that's his name. It's just whatever, you know? And so he had no problem getting in. But when it came to like Sabo and Morley and Lindbergh, Sabo infiltrated using, like, he disguised himself as a knight, but I guess like Lindbergh and Morley got in the other way by infiltrating the Red Line. So when Morley can manipulate all sorts of different kinds of earth, that includes the red earth that makes up the entire red line, okay? And we even see this when they're ascending the gondola to reach Marie Geoise. Steady, the king of the Goa kingdom, kind of turns around and just sees Morley poking out of the red line, who's like, yoo-hoo! And Starly's like, oh, what is that? Everybody look at the giant! And was like, what giant? What are you talking about, King Steady? Oh man, yeah, it's the upper atmosphere. It tends to deprive you of some oxygen. You might hallucinate. Ah! So Morley was able to go inside of the red line. And later on, when they're at Marie Geoise, they show this little space, that little air pocket room that Morley created with the push-push fruit abilities, where all of the revolutionaries were kind of hiding out. This was directly under the center plaza of the Tenryubito city, one of the most carefully guarded, places in all of Marie Geoise. And Morley was able to set up a base camp, like literally 10 feet below it. So I'm going to present to you a quick map on how, like, Dragon's final infiltration plan can work with the red line, because it is a very formidable, like, fortress. Geography is everything, probably why the world government's base of operations that's at the very top of the damn thing makes it difficult for a big invading army to gain access. But not when you have Morley's power. Now, the other Revolutionary Army abilities, like, for example, Karasu being able to turn into a bunch of birds, and then Revolutionary Army, people can hop on the birds and fly around. We've seen that with Sabo. So Karasu could carry a bunch of people into the capital, into Marie Geoise as well. But Morley's ability, I think, is going to be even more useful for the main force that they're going to be bringing. I don't know exactly how many people are in the Revolutionary Army. I'm assuming it's a few thousand. Karasu can't carry that many. He can carry a lot, but he can't carry that many, okay? So here's the scenario here. Look at this map, just to kind of throw it out there a little bit. We have the red line. We have Marie Geoise at the top of the red line. We have this blue line right here. That's going to be sea level. You see below that, you see Fishman Island. This is drawn wildly not to scale. We have the red port, which is located right there on sea level. And we have the two gondola wires that connect Marie Geoise all the way down to the red port. We have gondola number 1 and gondola number 2. Okay, so as an example for when the Revolutionary Army decides to finally invade, here's what they can do. They can take the ships, their battleships, full of all of their Revolutionary Army soldiers, go to some random spot on the red line that is not defended. It doesn't even have to be in the Grand Line. It could be in the Comm Belt. They can gain access to that. It could be in the North Blue. It could be in the West Blue. It doesn't matter. Or I guess East and South Blue, because it all kind of borders, Marie Geoise at one point. They go to some random point on the red line. Then Morley uses the Oshi no Mi to form a giant tunnel into the red line and make various rooms throughout the entire rock wall of this thing, leading all the way up. So the army literally just climbs all the way to the top of the red line from inside of the damn thing. And so then Morley can create all these different places, and there's air pockets as well. Morley can make little vents outside of the red line. We actually did see that when she made the room underneath the Celestial Dragon City. We see this tiny little crack that was left in the wall in order to, allow air to come in. I don't know if it was enough to allow air for everybody breathing, especially Morley being a giant and all, but it was good enough. It doesn't matter. Okay, so anyway, we just make sure we have good ventilation. Morley can make steps, so the Revolutionary Army could just be like, all right, everybody, come on in. Let's start climbing the red line. It's about, like, a mile or two up. It's going to be a while, but, like, no need to rush, right? You have all the time in the world. It's not like the world government is going to be able to get inside of the red line and fight you, right? So, they climb the red line. When they want to take a break, they just kind of relax in one of these rooms. They bring rations with them. They chill out for a bit. Morley's going to have a lot of work on her hands. Oh, by the way, in case you're curious, because you might not be aware, Morley is in the same category as Okiku in that she has the heart of a woman, and she talks in a very feminine speech pattern and is also a newcomer, which in the regards of being a newcomer, the whole situation there has probably had her sex changed like so many times through Ivankov's Devil Fruit ability that probably doesn't mean much anymore, but yeah, prefers to be referred to as a woman. So anyway, Morley just sets up all these little pockets and these little rooms inside of the red line, and then everybody gets ready to invade directly below Marie Geoise, and then when the time is ready, just make a bunch of tunnels, and then you just, jump up onto the Celestial Dragon City, like literally attacking them from under them. Okay, so the Bondolas doesn't matter. Defenses outside of the city doesn't even matter. I don't know how well defenses are at Marie Geoise, because, the smart thing to do, if you were going to attempt to actually scale the damn thing, wouldn't be to scale it directly at Marie Geoise. You would want to scale it like maybe a few miles or kilometers, east or west away from Marie Geoise, and then, mobilize and then attack. I'm assuming the God's Knights and the guards of the city have that all set up in case somebody were to try to do that, but they're not planning on somebody attacking from underneath. It is a world where magic abilities exist, like devil fruit powers and everything, so they might think that something like that could happen, but it's going to be really hard to plan for everything. It'd be funny if, like, Morley appears in, like, the basement of Castle Pangea in the freezer room where the giant straw hat was. Morley shows up in Emu's magic freezer room, and she's just like, oh, hello, ooh, it's cold in here, ooh, a giant straw hat, and puts that on. Like, that would be really funny. Morley, by the way, is 160 years old, and is the shortest giant so far in the story. She's only 12.5 meters tall, which was stated by Oda. 12 meters is kind of like the shortest a giant could possibly be on the lower average, and then that's about 41 feet tall, okay, so still a giant, right? 160 years old, and this is very important because Morley was the person that carved out level 5.5 of Impel Down, which would later be called New Kama Land. And I guess, I don't know if it's implied Ivankov and Morley know about this now, once Ivankov got out of prison and went back and, met everybody, and Ivankov talked about, like, oh, hee-haw, we found this hidden area of, like, a bunch of ant caves in between level 5 and level 6 of Impel Down that was there for some reason. I guess a devil fruit user made that. And then Morley's like, oh, yes, I'm the one that made that, Ivankov. And like, oh, well, thanks, helped us out a lot. And that's actually where Mr. 2 Bon Clay is hanging out right now. So I like that. Like, every generation of that space was like Morley created it, then Ivankov, started New Kama Land, and now Bon Clay is in charge. So it's always like the Okama and the New Kama rule over that particular space, right? So Morley broke out of Impel Down, though, over 100 years ago, which means that space has maintained its structural integrity for a century. So it's not even like the spaces that are created with the push fruit are, like, unstable, and after Morley leaves, they, like, fall apart or something like that. No, New Kama Land, level 5.5, remained the way it was for a century. Which means this whole strategy of making the tunnel system in the red line and then, like, mobilizing an entire army and then attacking from below could totally happen, and they don't really have to worry about a cave-in because Morley is an expert at this. Also, yeah, coincidentally, 100 years ago, when Morley was imprisoned in Impel Down, this would have been right around the time the giant warrior pirates were being executed, and Mother Caramel showed up and did the whole, like, oh, the act of, like, oh, please, God, save them and whatever, and so she's the one that prevented their execution, and that led to the giants working with the Marines a little bit there. But yeah, 100 years ago, this was right after Dory and Broggy started their duel, giant warrior pirates broke up, Mother Caramel. It was also the same time Morley was in prison, so it was stated Morley's origin is actually the West Blue, not in the Grand Line, so I don't think she was born in Elbaf. What probably happened, considering this is right around the time the Giant Warrior Pirates were active and then they broke up because Dory and Broggy started their duel, it was probably a thing that kicked off, like, and we see this a little bit in, like, Harold's flashback, actually, we see it a lot, the paranoia of, like, giants being these warmongers that are going to go and just stomp everything, and Harold didn't really help much there. So I could see Morley not being an Elbathian giant, but just somewhere out there in the world, and then gets, arrested or gets taken in or captured while she was asleep or something, thrown into Impel Down, but using the power of the Oshi no Mi to form this little space and living under there for a time, and then ultimately deciding to escape and got out of there. I guess maybe, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, that is a good point. I guess Morley could have used the Oshi no Mi to, like, dig a tunnel under the seabed and then escape that way. But if that was the case, there would have been a direct escape route from level 5.5 out of the prison. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. that would have had to have been the case anyway, because Morley got out of the prison. So if Morley made level 5.5 and then escaped somehow, also using the Oshi no Mi, either made a tunnel through the prison and then out that way, that doesn't make any sense. The prison's in the center of the ocean. The only way that Morley could have escaped was using the power to make a tunnel and then escape under the seabed and then go somewhere else. Maybe that is what she did, but afterwards had to collapse the tunnel or something like that, so they couldn't. That actually might make sense, you know, just to make sense, like, because in case they ever found it, they would have, like, followed her. I guess the smart thing to do would be collapse the tunnel after the escape. And then by the time Ivankov was in prison there, found the place. It's an awesome place to hang out and be safe from the guards and everything, and open up the bar and everything that Ivankov did. But the tunnel that would have been used to escape would have been collapsed at that point by Morley, and then there was no way out. So you're just stuck there, but at least it's a safe haven. All right, I guess that makes sense there, right? But anyway, yeah, a great earth-based devil fruit that allows you to mold the entire surrounding terrain. The awakening of this would be absolutely insane, I think. Just like increasing the range of all this, where Morley could just basically like shape the entire, like, imagine you're fighting and then Morley just takes this surrounding earth and just forms like a giant sphere. So you're like locked in this giant dome, okay? You're locked in the dome with Morley, right? And then it's just, you know, using all different aspects of the earth around you to attack, okay? That would be a pretty powerful awakening, I would think. Or just, you know, similar to Whitebeard's Tremor fruit, although not exactly, just pushing the earth around you and causing the shockwaves or like the undulations of the ground to just, you know, ring out way more further away to basically an entire island scale. Because every time we see Morley use the devil fruit, it is always like localized areas. That might also be just to kind of minimize damage overall. Like, you know, at the end of the day, Morley was there to save the people of Lelucia from Peachbeard, not to destroy their entire town. But the idea is, like, we see this when Sabo and Karasu were grabbed by Morley and dragged down into that secret room. Morley's hand just appears out of the ground and is just like, yoink, and then pulls them back down, and then the ground settles. You know, like it was made out of, like, water or something. Like, the ground around the ability liquefies or something and then just returns to its normal shape. You know, so like I guess the way that it works there is even if the buildings and stuff are knocked out of place, Morley can just be like, oh, I'm sorry, let me just rearrange, put that building over there. Oh, thank you. My bakery was actually next to the grocery store. Oh, I'm so sorry, let me just move that over there. And it's like, all right, yeah, you good? He's like, yeah, hey, actually, can you move my house up to that hill? I really wanted to always move that house up on the hill. No problemo. Picks up the house, moves it over there. Like, there's a really handy power, okay? Yeah, with less destructive force than Whitebeard's, but still has that ability to manipulate the earth, okay? Absolutely powerful ability. Pretty multifaceted, and I can't wait to see how it'll be utilized by Dragon's Revolution. Okay, so that's all the Revolutionary Army commanders. Don't have to make the Lindbergh video because Lindbergh's ability is he's a cat with a jetpack. Yeah, moving on now, we have the 3 Blackbeard devil fruit abilities, the new ones that we learned about. We got Doc Q's Sick fruit, Van Auger's Warp fruit, and Jesus Burgess's Riki or Strong fruit. So those will be the next 3 we tackle, and then the Egghead Vice Admirals, and then we have Biblos. And then we'll be done. And then we have to get all of the Zoans done by the end of the year. Are we gonna make it, ladies and gentlemen? I don't know. I don't know, but I'm gonna try. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Techie 101, signing out.